Shalom, this is Daniel Stern of Netivyah. I'm here with you from Jerusalem as always, and today we need to talk, of course, about Syria, about Bashar al-Assad. The regime has fallen. After 54 years, the Lions of Syria, which is the nickname for Hafez al-Assad and Bashar al-Assad, have fallen. To summarize what happened so quickly here in the Middle East, let's see. The rebels captured Idlib, Hama, Aleppo, Hama, Homs, and continued down to Damascus. They are now in Damascus. The Iraqi, Iranian, and Russians announced that they will not be providing assistance. The Russians moved their fleets away from Latika and Tartus, their Mediterranean ports. They are gone now from Syria. The rebels came from the south, from the east, and of course from the north, which was the major push that we've been talking about for the last couple days. And the Prime Minister of Syria has announced that he will give hand over leadership to the rebels. In fact, there are videos of him leaving his house to go to that meeting. The Syrian army commanders have announced to the army that the regime has fallen. Bashar al-Assad got on a plane and flew out of Damascus. I heard that he was heading north towards a Russian airbase. There have been reports, not 100% credible, but somewhat credible, that his plane was shot down. We'll wait and see what happens with that. But regardless, the Syrian regime that has lasted for 54 years has fallen. What comes next? Well, rebels and general people who have been oppressed by them have broke into the Iranian embassy in Syria to vent their frustrations at the Iranian oppression through their puppet Assad against them. The rebel forces have entered all of the palaces of Bashar and all the cities that they took, up into including Damascus. The rebel forces have taken up the border crossings between Syria and Iraq, between Syria and Israel, between Syria and Jordan. Now, who is this rebel leader? Well, let's quickly recap on him. I'm going to keep this somewhat short, but it's important information. The rebel leader who had an interview on CNN, so go watch that, is formerly part of the Islamic State. After that, part of Jabhat al-Nusra, which is an al-Qaeda affiliated organization. And after that, he disconnected from al-Qaeda and started leading the current rebel group, Hayat Tahrir al-Shams, which is the organization that took control from the Syrian government in all the areas that they've captured. And he is currently portraying himself as more moderate than Islamic State and al-Qaeda. He says that they're interested in a regional rule only in Syria. They're not interested in some world jihad and expansion. Also, he has told his troops to be kind and not hurt and not harm the minorities, the Christians, the Druze, and so on. And in fact, this change of leadership and change of government has gone by relatively smoothly. The Syrian army has not engaged. They retreated, they evaporated. In fact, I heard that a few thousand of them have fled to Iraq. And in general, the rebels came in not guns blazing, not shooting up the place, and were welcomed with cheers and open arms by the citizens. Now, what happens next? Well, of course, Israel has sent some soldiers into the demilitarized zone on the border between Israel and Syria on the Golan. And that is, of course, to stop invaders, Syrian militias, Hezbollah, whoever, from making their way into Israel. Israel's Air Force attacked and destroyed a chemical warfare plant in order to make sure that it doesn't get into the wrong hands, although frankly, any chemical plant in Syria was already in the wrong hands. And now we just have to wait and see what's going to happen. Will the rebels be the ones in control? Will it become some sort of Taliban type Afghanistan or Hamastan or some other radical Islamic country? Or will there be some form of power sharing, some form of federation, coalition, the Kurds, the Turkish, these rebels? We'll just have to wait and see. Obviously, no one knows what the future holds, but we can say that for now, this doesn't seem to be an immediate threat to Israel, even though the Israeli army is on extremely high alert and is recruiting units to the Golan Heights. I heard that the 98th Brigade and the Paratroopers Brigade are being sent up there, and they are reorganizing and rearming and re-recruiting the settlements on the Golan's first response teams. So they are on high alert in case anything happens. But that's about the situation. The Russians left, the Iranians left, Bashar's regime has fallen, and the rebels, who are backed by Turkey but not entirely controlled by them, are taken over. Now, that's all I'm going to say about Syria, because I want to say a few more small things. One, take note at how the axis of evil have fallen. The Iranian regime is weakened. Hezbollah is weakened. Hamas is weakened. Bashar has fallen. The Syrian regime has fallen. All these enemies that a year and a half ago were threatening Israel have fallen. So praise God and keep praying for such things. And now I want to go back to why this happened at this point in time. Well, obviously because Israel battered Hezbollah and attacked Iran, they were considerably less available to assist Bashar in remaining in power as they've done for the last 13 years. Additionally, Russia, as we all know, was busy in the Ukraine. But here is something that not all of you may have considered. Why was Russia not available even for a few weeks, for a few months, to divert forces to help? And the answer is probably Donald Trump. Probably the incoming President-elect Donald Trump, who will force a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, has diverted Russia's energy to solidifying their territorial gains now in the coming months before Donald Trump comes in, when they will be forced to the table to make peace. They want to increase their territorial gains, and consequently, that was more important to them than Syria. Okay, last but not least, we can talk about Romania and the Constitutional Court nullifying the election. We can talk about the government in France fallen. We can talk about a lot of things, but we're not. What I do want to mention is South Korea. As we know, last video we talked about that, and you can watch that video to understand what happened over there. But I want to just say two little updates. One of them is that the impeachment attempt, which happened yesterday at 10 in the morning Korea time, to oust the president, failed. It needed 200 votes. The opposition had 192 seats, but the People's Party, the party of the president, boycotted the vote, and consequently he was not impeached. I understand there'll be another attempt in this coming Wednesday. We'll wait and see. But here's something that I heard from a Korean friend, which is the reason why the president declared martial law. And in fact, this Korean supporter and friend told me that he viewed it as a success, which is odd because we see it as a failure. He declared martial law, and a few hours later he was forced to relinquish it and failed in what he wanted to do. But what I heard is that the reason he declared martial law is that he could seize the information and about the voting machines that he views as the ones that caused rigged voting in South Korea, that caused his party to be as weak as it was, and so on and so forth, and that he was able to get those machines in order to get the proof that he will need in the future to prove that the elections were rigged. So that's maybe something that not many of you knew. I know I didn't, and I just wanted to throw that out there as possibly something positive, assuming that you side with that president, that happened in this event. So that is it for now, but this is truly a historic day that the 54-year regime, one of the most brutal regimes in a brutal neighborhood of the Middle East, toppled. So please pray for the government of Israel, the soldiers of Israel, and obviously the citizens of Syria, that they'll be able to return to their homes, and that the soldiers and government of Israel will be wise, will work to protect themselves from the coming threats. And thank you all for supporting Netivyah and praying for Netivyah and for our work here in Israel to equip the soldiers and to feed the needy. God bless you all. Shalom.